The wind whispered through the ancient trees, carrying the faint scent of moss and the promise of rain. The forest stretched endlessly, dark and alive, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Lyra walked beneath the towering oaks, her bare feet brushing the damp earth. Her heart ached with a longing she could not name, a quiet loneliness that had followed her since birth. For as long as she could remember, the villagers had whispered about her. "She is wolfless," they said, and their words stung like thorns. In a land where the bond between humans and wolves was sacred, Lyra's inability to connect made her an anomaly. Every full moon, when the forest seemed to hum with life, she would wander here, hoping to hear what her heart could not summon. Tonight, the moon was a silver blade in the sky, sharp and cold. Lyra paused at the edge of a small clearing, her eyes drawn to a faint shimmer between the trees. Wolves howled somewhere in the distance, a chorus that made her chest ache with a longing she could not voice. She closed her eyes, listening, and for a moment she imagined her heart howling back to them. A sudden movement startled her. From the shadows emerged a figure tall and commanding, cloaked in darkness that seemed to drink the light. His presence made the air shift as though the forest itself recognized him. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. He was the Alpha King, Kalen. Stories of him had traveled even to the farthest villages, merciless, strong, and feared by those who knew the power of his wolf line. His eyes were a piercing silver, reflecting the moonlight, and something far older, something that spoke of strength, loneliness, and a hunger for connection that mirrored her own. Lyra instinctively stepped back, yet her feet felt rooted to the earth. Kalen's gaze found her heart as though he could see into her very soul, and in that moment a strange and dangerous warmth began to bloom in her chest, a feeling she had never known. "You are wolfless," he said, his voice low and rich, carrying authority that could command the very air. Lyra nodded, unable to speak. Words would not come. She had never met one of his kind so close, never touched by the raw power of an alpha, and yet she felt strangely safe, as if his presence alone could shield her from all the world's scorn. Kalen studied her for a long moment, silent. Then he took a slow step forward, and the forest seemed to lean in, listening. "Yet your heart," he whispered almost to himself, "it howls for something it cannot yet name." Lyra's pulse raced. She did not understand what he meant, and yet deep inside she felt that he understood her more than anyone ever had. Her lips trembled. I don't know what you mean," she stammered. Kalen tilted his head, eyes never leaving hers. "Perhaps you do not, but I hear it." He paused, and for the first time Lyra noticed the faint outline of a wolf, a shadow beside him, silent but watching. "Your heart calls to me. Even across the distance it calls." A shiver ran down her spine. No one had ever heard her like this. No one had ever seen her beyond her wolflessness. "I am nothing," she whispered. "You are not nothing," Kalen said, stepping closer. The wind swirled around them, and Lyra felt it tug at her hair and clothes as though the forest itself had recognized the moment. Even the wolfless can carry a heart that is meant to awaken. Lyra swallowed hard. The words sounded like a promise, yet a warning too. She wanted to believe him, yet fear and doubt had been her constant companions for so long that it was hard to imagine trust. "Why me?" she asked finally, her voice barely more than a breath. "Why do you hear my heart?" Kalen's gaze softened for just a fraction of a second, a crack in the armor he always wore. "Because it is brave," he said simply, "and because it is lost. I have not heard such longing in centuries. And He paused, his silver eyes darkening. "I cannot turn away," Lyra's heart stuttered. To have her deepest, quietest longing recognized by someone so powerful. It was dizzying. She wanted to reach out, to touch him, yet something held her back. She did not belong in his world. Not fully. Not yet. The forest around them grew quiet, expectant. The distant howls of wolves rose and fell like a heartbeat, and then without warning Lyra's chest clenched and a sound escaped her lips, a quiet, trembling howl. It was weak at first, a whisper of the sorrow she carried for all her life, but as the seconds passed it grew stronger, echoing through the trees and touching the very roots of the forest. Kalen's eyes widened. He dropped to one knee, letting the shadow wolf beside him step forward. The creature's fur shimmered in the moonlight, a living echo of his alpha power. Lyra felt a strange pull toward it, but her wolfless heart faltered. Still, she continued to howl, letting her loneliness and longing pour into the night. The wolf nuzzled her hand, sensing the echo of something deep within her. Kalen rose, his voice both awe-filled and commanding. You can hear even if you cannot yet see. Your heart calls to mine. Do you feel it? Lyra nodded, tears blurring her vision. Yes, I feel it. But I am afraid. Kalen stepped closer again, the silver of his eyes catching the moonlight like a blade. Fear is not your enemy, he said. It is the shadow that marks the beginning of courage. Your heart is not weak, Lyra, it is alive, and I will not let it be silenced. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she placed her hand over her chest, feeling the strange, pulsing warmth, the first sign that something impossible had begun. Something powerful, something dangerous, something real. The forest held its breath. The distant wolves fell silent, as if listening to the silent conversation between two hearts that had been waiting centuries to meet. Kalen finally spoke. Softer this time, almost tenderly. You were born without a wolf. But perhaps your heart was never truly empty. Perhaps it was waiting to find the one who could hear it. Lyra's chest swelled with a mixture of hope and fear. To be seen like this, to have her wolfless heart acknowledged, it was terrifying, yet it felt like home. She wanted to speak, to tell him everything, yet the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she simply nodded. And in that silent nod, Kalen understood more than any words could say. A branch snapped in the distance, and Lyra jumped, heart pounding. The spell of the moment broke slightly, and reality crept back in. Kalen's gaze sharpened, alert, protective. You are not safe here, he said, voice low, but with an edge that brooked no argument. Come with me. There are things you do not yet understand, things that could awaken or destroy what is hidden inside you. I will keep you safe for now. But know this, your heart has chosen even if you have not. Lyra hesitated. Fear pressed against her like a physical weight, but deep inside a spark had been lit, a spark she could no longer deny. She nodded again, slowly, trusting the alpha who had just entered her life like a storm. Kalen extended his hand. Trembling, she took it. The moment their hands met, a surge of warmth passed between them, and for the first time in her life, Lyra did not feel wolfless. She felt connected. The forest seemed to exhale, the moonlight bathing them in silver, and as Kalen led her deeper into the shadows, away from the world she had known, Lyra realized that her life had changed forever. Somewhere, far off, the wolves howled once more. This time, Lyra felt their song not as an outsider, but as someone who might finally belong. And in the darkness ahead, Kalen walked silently, knowing that he had heard a heart howl that would not be forgotten. For even the Alpha King had never known a call like this, one that promised both danger and a longing too deep to resist. The night held them both in its breathless quiet, and Lyra's heart for the first time answered the impossible question. Could she awaken what had never been born, and in doing so awaken the Alpha himself? The stronghold rose from the mountains like a crown of stone and shadow. Its walls were dark and cold, carved from the ancient rock of the northern peaks. Torches flickered along the battlements, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. Lyra's fingers clutched Kalen's hand as he guided her up the winding path. Every step made her heart pound, not from fear of the height but from the strange, heavy pull of being in the presence of an alpha. The air was sharp and crisp, carrying the scent of pine, stone, and something more, something wild like the promise of untamed power. Lyra had never seen a place like this. The stronghold felt alive, almost aware of her presence, as though the walls themselves were judging her worthiness. Kalen led her into a wide hall. Wolves padded silently along the edges, their eyes glinting silver in the torchlight. Lyra froze. These were no ordinary wolves. They were extensions of Kalen's soul, powerful and intelligent, their gaze keenly aware of her every movement. They are watching you, Kalen said softly. Do not be afraid. They will test you. And I will not leave you unguarded. Lyra nodded, though her throat felt dry. She knew the villagers had whispered tales of alphas and their wolves, but she had never believed them fully until now. These creatures exuded both grace and danger. Even the air around them seemed to hum with restrained energy. Kalen knelt slightly, bringing his silver eyes level with hers. Do you understand why I brought you here? He asked. His voice was calm, yet beneath it a power thrummed like a drumbeat. I think so, Lyra replied, her voice trembling. You said my heart called to yours. He studied her intently. Yes, but it is more than that. You are wolfless, yes, but your heart carries a strength you do not yet know. The pack must see it. They must feel it. Only then can you begin to awaken what sleeps inside you. Lyra's stomach turned at the thought. To stand among Kalen's pack wolfless and untested was terrifying. What if they rejected her? What if her heart failed to respond in the way Kalen seemed to believe it would? Kalen's hand brushed hers, a brief, grounding touch. Your fear is expected, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to face it. Before Lyra could respond, a low growl rolled through the hall. One of the largest wolves stepped forward, its fur black as night, eyes gleaming with silver fire. Lyra froze, its gaze bored into hers, sharp and penetrating. This is Fenrir, Kalen said quietly. He will test you. Do not retreat, Lyra took a trembling breath. The wolf's presence was overwhelming, but she forced herself to meet its gaze. And in that moment, something strange happened. A tiny spark flickered in her chest, a whisper of energy that seemed to answer the wolf's silent challenge. Fenrir's growl softened slightly and he stepped back. Lyra exhaled, barely realizing she had been holding her breath. Kalen's eyes softened with approval. Good, he said. Do not underestimate the pack. They will challenge you because they must. They must know if your heart can belong here. As she moved deeper into the stronghold, Lyra noticed the other wolves watching her with the same intense scrutiny. She could feel their thoughts almost like whispers in the air, a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and respect waiting to be earned. The hall led to a smaller chamber where Kalen's second in command, a tall woman with amber eyes named Solara, waited. She regarded Lyra with a measured expression. Wolfless, Solara said plainly. Do you think you can survive here? Lyra's pulse quickened. I do not know, she admitted. But I want to try. I want to belong. Solara studied her silently and then gave a small nod. Good, then we begin. The training started that evening. Kalen and Solara guided her through exercises to awaken her senses, to feel the forest and the pack not just with her eyes but with her heart. Lyra stumbled, often frustrated by her inability to connect. Her wolfless nature made even simple tasks difficult. Kalen's patience was infinite yet firm. Do not rush, he told her, his hand brushing hers whenever she faltered. Your heart is not weak. It is learning. And the pack will wait if you must. As the days passed, Lyra began to notice small changes. She could sense the wolves' movements before they made them, feel the shift of the wind as if it carried messages she had not heard before. Yet every attempt was fraught with tension. One wrong step and a wolf would growl, reminding her of the distance between her and them. Kalen watched her with unwavering attention. Sometimes he would stand close and she would feel the warmth radiating from him, a dangerous pull that made her heart beat faster than the training ever could. Their proximity created a tension that neither dared speak of, yet both felt. One evening after a long day, Kalen took her to the edge of the stronghold, where the cliffs dropped into a misty valley. The moon reflected off the clouds, casting silver shadows over the peaks. Lyra shivered, partly from the cold, partly from the closeness of Kalen. You are learning, Kalen said, his voice low, almost reverent. I hear it in your heart. The spark is growing. You are not just wolfless, you are unclaimed, yes, but that means your strength has not been bound. That is rare, Lyra, that is dangerous and beautiful. Lyra looked away, cheeks burning. I am afraid, she whispered. Afraid I will fail. Afraid I will never belong. Kalen stepped closer, his silver eyes locking with hers. Fear is part of the journey, he said softly. But your heart has already chosen to try, and that is more than most ever dare. For a moment, silence held them, broken only by the distant cry of a wolf. Lyra felt an unsteady warmth growing inside her, a mixture of courage and something else, something deep and raw. She could not name it, yet it made her chest ache and her pulse race. Suddenly, a howl echoed across the valley, long and mournful. Lyra's chest clenched involuntarily. It was not her own howl, yet it called to her, and she felt an unexplainable pull, a resonance that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. Kalen's gaze sharpened. Do you hear it? He asked. Yes, Lyra whispered, trembling. It calls to me. That is the pack, he said. And now, they will truly test you. The following night, the wolves gathered in a circle around her. Fenrir stepped forward first, then the others. Lyra's heart raced as she realized that this was more than training. It was judgment. She closed her eyes, listening to her heartbeat, and for the first time, tried to howl, Not with voice, but with emotion, letting every fear, every hope, every unspoken longing pour into the night. The wolves responded. Not with aggression, but with recognition. A low, rumbling harmony rose around her as if the pack itself acknowledged her courage. Lyra opened her eyes, and for a moment Kaelin's gaze met hers, soft with something she could not name. Pride, awe, desire, perhaps all of them. Yet even as a spark of connection flared, uncertainty lingered. She felt the weight of being wolfless pressing against her, a reminder that her journey had only begun. Kaelin approached, hand extended. "Do you feel it?" he asked, voice quiet yet commanding. Lyra nodded. "Yes, something inside me." "Good," he said. "You are ready for the next step. But be warned, awakening your heart is only the beginning. The world outside this stronghold does not forgive weakness, and those who wish to control what you carry will come for you. You must be ready." Lyra's chest tightened, a mixture of fear and determination. She did not fully understand what she carried, or why Kaelin's presence made her heart feel alive and fragile at the same time. But she knew one thing. She could not turn back. As she looked into the silver night, Kaelin's shadow beside her, Lyra realized that she was no longer just wolfless. She was part of something larger, something alive, something that could awaken the impossible. And in that realization, a spark of courage bloomed. Yet even as she took her first true steps toward the Alpha King's world, a whisper of unease brushed her thoughts. The wolves had accepted her for now, but not all hearts in the forest were kind. There were eyes watching from the darkness, waiting for weakness, waiting for a moment to strike, and somewhere deep inside, Lyra knew, the path ahead would not just test her courage, it would test her heart. The wind whispered again, carrying the faint, mournful echo of a wolf's howl. Lyra shivered. Her heart answered,